All right. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining. We're going to go over some cybersecurity things here, and I just want to welcome you to the Forbes weekly cybersecurity briefing. Let's go ahead and get started. First of all, my name is John Faust. I've been doing this for over 17 years, cybersecurity expert, done everything in IT from doing help desk support all the way up to sales, cybersecurity, whole nine yards. So, some of the things we're going to talk about today are the pressing issues happening right now in cybersecurity. We're also going to talk about the CrowdStrike incident that happened a couple of months ago. What were the causes? How was the response? And some key takeaways that you can have for you and your business to try to stay safe and secure. So let's get started. First thing I want to talk about is something that's been super prevalent in the last few months is business email compromise. What that is, and it's been going on for a while, but it's really had a gigantic uptick in really the past 6 months or so for small, medium business. And a hacker gets access to somebody's email system as them and then creates havoc, whether they go through and send out emails to other people to get their credentials taken over, or they use it to steal money or further hacking into other systems. So we did a video and a blog about it, so check those out. Christina's going to put those links in the chat for you guys to look at. But what I want you all to do is be vigilant of those sorts of things. So don't click on unknown links or attachments if you don't trust it. If you don't know the source of it, then don't trust it. If you're not expecting it, then don't click on those things. If you click on an attachment or a link and it asks you to enter your Office 365 credentials, don't. That should be a hard stop, especially if that's an unusual behavior. Do not do it. Verify through a phone call or other contact method, text message, something like that to the person who sent the message. Don't reply to the email because you could be replying to a hacker. And if an attachment doesn't work, call your IT because that doesn't mean that the attachment didn't work. That just means the attachment didn't do what you expected. It could very easily have tried to download some hacking software on your computer or stolen your Office 365 credentials due to a saved session or something like that, and you didn't even realize it. So, like I said, check out the blog and the video and the link to be more prepared. And we're going to do a more intensive webinar about this, about some methods to try to stay safe. The other one, excuse me, and this has been going on over the last week or so, is the SonicWall SSL VPN vulnerability. And what's going on is there's a vulnerability with the SSL VPN software that SonicWalls use where they can, adversary can send a bunch of requests to it and eventually gain access to that firewall or the network behind it without putting in a password. Critical vulnerability, there's a Russian hacking group that's using this vulnerability to get into systems. And so it's critical that these systems get patched. We've patched well over 100 firewalls within the last 3 days to combat this. But the issue is this isn't just SonicWall. It's an issue with SSL VPN as a whole and that legacy technology. In the past, Palo Alto has been hit, Fortinet's been hit, Cisco's been hit, and it's pretty obvious that every SSL VPN vendor will be hit with some sort of vulnerability at some point. So what can you do? There's several different options to replace your VPN. One is a SASE solution, so Secure Access Service Edge. What that basically is a software-based VPN that's always on. It's not on the firewall. You don't give access to it in the same way, and so it protects your firewall and it removes the access to a different level in a different area, and it moves it to the place where you generally have a lot of cybersecurity tools running. The other thing is a remote access application. Something like LogMeIn is a good public example of it, but there's plenty of different providers. You want to make sure that one has multi-factor authentication, those sorts of good things. But what it does is say you have a laptop and you just need to connect to a desktop at your office. That allows you to do so securely with multi-factor authentication, logging, all sorts of pieces like that. And you're not opening your network up to the same kind of vulnerabilities that you have with SSL VPN. We're going to be doing a future webinar and a future video and blog about these things, about the alternatives to VPN, those sorts of things, about how to, and about locking your firewall down more. So stay tuned for those. But just wanted to mention them because it's a really bad thing going on in the industry right now. So, CrowdStrike. who are they? So they are one of the largest endpoint security vendors in the world. They at the time in 2022, according to their documentation, they had 17% of the endpoint security market. So think of this as your EDR type antivirus that's on your computers. Now they do a little bit more than that, but they're a cybersecurity researcher, all those sorts of things. But they're a big company. You know, they're in the top 300 of the Fortune 500 rankings, and a lot of your enterprise customers like Delta, banks, those sorts of things use CrowdStrike. So let me paint you this picture. It's 6 a.m., your alarm goes off, and you start scrolling through your social media feed and looking for the newest cyber news. This maybe isn't you, but this is me every day. And you see this CrowdStrike vulnerability. You start to look at it and you see, do we have any clients that are on CrowdStrike? Well, I know of one. They were a customer that had a license that ran through this year, and we were going to go ahead and get them moved off after the license was over. But we were looking at evaluating CrowdStrike. I pull up my cyber tool sets and I look and see that they're offline. I give the business owner a call, and sure enough, their systems are down. They don't have access to it. And I'm like, hey, when is somebody going to be at your office to get in and fix this problem? And he told me 7:30, and we had somebody waiting at their office that day. But all their servers, all their PCs were locked up in what's called a boot loop. So it would boot up, it would do the Windows blue screen of death that we're all familiar with, or the frowny face now with Windows 11. It would do that, and then it would wait a few seconds, and then it would do it again. It would reboot and go back to blue screen. So that's called a boot loop. So what went on? Well, there was a config file that was pushed out wrong to the CrowdStrike systems, all of them, that caused this to happen. And every single computer that was connected to the internet that was using CrowdStrike got this bad config file, and that caused this boot loop to happen. Worldwide impact, millions of devices taken offline. It was pretty bad. So CrowdStrike actually responded to it relatively quickly. They had a patch within 2 hours, and the issue is that the computers wouldn't be on for long enough for the networking to connect to the internet for them to download the CrowdStrike patch before the systems would go back into a blue screen. So what it took was you had to go to every single computer and boot them into safe mode, delete a file, and then reboot. After you did that, the computers booted just fine. It was about a 5 to 15-minute process per computer. But as you can imagine, if you're a place like Delta, you have thousands of these endpoints that you don't have physical access to, a lot of them. So you had to scramble to get teams to go and click on them and actually do this physical work. Or sometimes you could cross your fingers and just reboot them 10 or 15 times, and they would maybe get the network long enough on one of those to have it delete the file and have it go past the boot loop. One of the big issues, though, with it was something called BitLocker. So BitLocker is something fantastic from Microsoft. It encrypts your PC. What that does, though, is it says, hey, if somebody steals your computer and they put in a flash drive that tries to change the password, then they can't get access to your files unless they have this BitLocker recovery key. Well, those BitLocker recovery keys are very long and they need to be stored somewhere. What a lot of companies found is that the place that they were storing those BitLocker recovery keys was also a place that was in a boot loop from CrowdStrike. So you're now in a catch-22. You're in a conundrum. How do I reboot this system? How do I get this go into safe mode if it's going to ask for that recovery key and I don't have it? We back those recovery keys up in a different location. So that company that we were using, we had them all in a location that wasn't behind BitLocker. It was in a separate recovery platform that we could have access to those keys and go and put them in. And that company that we were working with had about 70 endpoints, and we had them back up and running by about 11 a.m. that morning. But had we not had those BitLocker recovery keys, it would have been a really difficult situation. We would have been potentially scrambling to try to get that info. So it's another thing of Where do you store your data? All those sorts of pieces. So the impact of this was obviously huge. It was big enough to make the news because it was worldwide and it was massive. Banking systems down, hospital systems down, flights delayed. So my brother and his family were, they got to the airport about a half hour after this happened in San Francisco to fly back to Cincinnati. And they ended up missing that flight because they were grounded and they actually drove back. Crazy story. They rented a car and drove back because at the time, they didn't know how long this was going to take to beat back up and were they going to be able to get a flight again. Um, Obviously, lawsuits are happening, massive loss of millions of dollars. So, what can you do? So, redundant systems to ensure service continuity. This is a difficult thing because um, do you run those redundant systems on a different cybersecurity platform? This is kind of unprecedented in the industry. What really happened here is CrowdStrike messed up. They should have done a staged rollout of this update of this config file and pushed it out to a few computers and a few more computers and finally to everyone in their global network to identify if there was going to be an issue with the patch file. That didn't happen. Most security vendors do that stage sort of rollout, so this can't happen. It might happen to a test group of computers and then they stop it before it gets past that. So um, training for response teams of how to handle this. You know, what happens if you need physical access to a system that's remote only and the only way to get it back up is getting physical access? So there's training contingency plans that need to happen with that. Um, and one of the big thing is business continuity planning. If you have a system that you need critical access to and that goes down, how do you maintain that your business runs and is able to function without access to that system? That's not an IT problem. That's a business leadership problem, and IT can help with that. But it's really how does the business continue functioning, supporting its mission, make money, all those sorts of things if they're critical systems that no longer have access to them. So, you know, in summary here, CrowdStrike messed up. I mean, it's kind of obvious. The fix was, but there was a lot of system failures throughout the line. Um, come up with a contingency plan of what happens if you have a critical system that's remote only. How do you get access to it? How do you fix it? And then have that business continuity plan for how do you continue to operate and support your business. Obviously, if you are a Forbes client, thank you. We're happy you're here. If you're not and you would like more information about any cybersecurity services, anything like that, please reach out. We are happy to help and have a conversation about how we can help secure your business and plan on making sure that you continue to run and support your mission as you go forward. And I thank you for joining. We were going to be doing more of these webinars, so look out for more of these. And there'll be different topics, and we'll see you in the future.